January 12, 2010. It was just another ordinary day in Haiti. People were heading home, closing up shops, sitting down for dinner. And then at exactly 4:53 p.m., everything changed. A 7-point magnitude earthquake struck just west of Port-au-Prince. In less than 60 seconds, the world as they knew it crumbled. This wasn't just an earthquake. This was devastating on a scale that no one was prepared for. Today, we're diving into the tragic events of that day, the causes behind such destruction, and the aftermath that still lingers 15 years later. Stick around to learn about a disaster that shook not just Haiti, but the entire world. At 4:53 p.m., the earth beneath Haiti's feet gave way. The epicenter was located just 16 miles west of Port-au-Prince, near the town of Léogâne. Now, 7-point might not sound catastrophic if you have seen stronger earthquakes on the Richter scale. But there's the thing, magnitude isn't everything. What matters is where and how it strikes. Haiti sits along the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault, a tectonic boundary that had been building pressure for over 200 years. When it finally gave way, it unleashed a force so violent that buildings crumbled like sandcastles. Léogâne suffered a staggering 90% destruction rate. Port-au-Prince, the capital and home to over 2.5 million people, was left in ruins. So why was this earthquake so devastating? First, Haiti's infrastructure was already fragile. Most buildings were poorly constructed, made with substandard materials, and lacked the ability to withstand seismic activity. There were virtually no enforced building codes. And secondly, the population density in Port-au-Prince meant that when the buildings fell, they fell on people. Homes, schools, hospitals gone in seconds. And then there were the aftershocks. Just minutes later, tremors measuring up to 5.9 hit, further collapsing structures that had barely managed to stand. The numbers are staggering. Over 230,000 lives lost, more than 300,000 people injured, and 1.5 million left homeless. Entire neighborhoods turned into unrecognizable piles of rubble. The cost of the damage? It was estimated at $8 billion. A staggering figure, especially when you consider Haiti's entire GDP at the time was just $8.2 billion. In other words, the damage done by the earthquake was almost equivalent to the entire value of Haiti's economy. The world responded quickly. Over $13 billion in aid was pledged. Countries sent rescue teams, medical supplies, and donations. The United States deployed 20,000 troops. Organizations like UNICEF and the Red Cross rushed to the scene. For a moment, it felt like the world's compassion could rebuild Haiti. In fact, that amount of aid was more than enough to cover the $8 billion damage caused by the earthquake, if it were used properly. But here's where things get complicated. Despite the global outpouring of support, much of that aid never reached the people who need it most. Why? For starters, Haiti's government was already weak, and the earthquake had wiped out many of its key buildings and personnel. There were no clear system for distributing aid. Take, for example, the $500 million raised by the Red Cross for Haiti's recovery. Despite this immense sum, reports later showed that they only managed to build 6 homes. Many Haitians who were displaced found themselves stuck in overcrowded tent cities, facing not only lack of shelter, but poor sanitation and little access to basic services. And then there's the issue of corruption. Some non-governmental organizations bypassed local authorities entirely, further displacing the responsibility. A lack of coordination between international groups and local leadership resulted in resources sitting idle in warehouses, while the needs on the ground only deepened. To make matters worse, a cholera outbreak, brought in by UN peacekeepers, killed over 10,000 people and sickened hundreds of thousands more. Some survivors and locals saw this as another failure of the international response, fueling resentment and complicating recovery efforts. Now, 15 years later, Haiti is still grappling with political instability, corruption, and ongoing natural disasters. In recent years, violent political protests have shaken the country, often leading to further disruption of recovery efforts. To add to that, Haiti faces repeated hurricanes, economic challenges, and a fragile infrastructure, which continually set back progress. Today, over 40% of Haitians still live below the poverty line. Entire neighborhoods still show the scars of the earthquake, and many of the makeshift camps set up after this disaster lasted for years, some dismantled only in the past few years. It's clear that the country has not yet recovered from the compounded effects of the earthquake and everything that came after. To this day, we still don't know where that $13 billion went and what the Red Cross did with the $500 million they raised for Haiti's recovery. What do you think? Should more be done to hold organizations accountable for how aid is used? Let me know in the comments. The earthquake of January 12, 2010 was a tragedy that left scars on Haiti and the world. But it also revealed the incredible strength and resilience of the Haitian people. They face imaginable loss, yet continue to fight for a better future. If this story moved you, consider liking, subscribing, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into stories that shape our world. Until next time, stay curious and stay compassionate.